But a shining star, yes, before I go that's the only time I parted with my brother. I came to England, he had a girlfriend which had a sister in Israel, and they went to Israel. He worked his way up. I visited him many times. They managed to establish a vegetarian restaurant in the center of Tel Aviv. He was doing marvelous. Unfortunately, he contracted leukemia, and them days was no hope, and he died very young. That's the end of my family. And I'm now in England. It's no good sitting in mourning, worrying how can you adjust, what have you got to offer? But a shining star, my wife, I met my wife, she was 17 years old, a beautiful young girl. I don't know how she took me on. She must have courage. We are married now 58 years. We got two daughters, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And my life changed beyond impossible to believe that it will happen to me, that I will be able to adjust to British life, to people, to be able to talk about it. Now you may wonder why I want to go over and over again to young people. You are the future. We live in a multiracial society, and we got to stand up to hatred, to learn to understand one another, their ways of praying, their way of doing. Go into our mosques, go into churches, learn about them. Then you learn that they're people like ordinary, we all want to bring up families and so on. The only one thing, what I'm frightened, I got grandchildren, as I mentioned to you. I don't want anything like this to happen to young people again. You are the future. You got to stand up to hatred. Don't walk away when you see injustice. When you go out from learning, you take up responsible positions. You will spend justice in the right way. We might even have a prime minister, who knows. I hope you remember a few words what I said. If you forget history, history might repeat itself again. I didn't come here to make you miserable, in the contrary. If we would have the opportunity like you have today, we were isolated. We, apparently that time, already in Germany, the Jews were persecuted, thrown out. We didn't know that. We could have rebelled. But now, with this computer, you're over the world. You see everything what happens, you can stand up to it. And that is my end of my talk. I would like you to ask questions, because I only skimmed over my tragedy. It's impossible to tell you all about it. It would take me 2 days, it may be longer. But I hope I didn't upset you too much. Thank you. I'm ready for questions. You see, these were part of my uncles, aunts. You know, that's the way they dressed. That's the way they lived for generations and generations. I got two little things. I would like two young people to come out to read this loudly, if I may. Or you can do it.
Before long, there will be no one left to say, I was there, I saw, and I remember what happened. As survivors, we chose to rebuild our lives and contribute to society. Today we pass the candle of remembrance to you as you go forward to help create a better world.
Here.
It's time to make a difference. In the days and weeks ahead, take notice of what is happening around you. If you eventually decide to get involved, think through the choices available to you. You can choose to find a tolerant course of action. You can help to produce the changes you wish to see in the world.
Thank you. Before I finish, I want to thank my dear friend, Peter Daisley, for organizing my testimony here. I'm getting old now, I'm 85. It might be my last time I spoke to people, students. And he offered to do this for me. I thank you, Peter.
How old were you when you were at Auschwitz?
I was 14, nearly 14. I was 13, going on for 14, in 1939. To Auschwitz, I already was 14, going on for 15. You wanted to ask? Come, please, loud because I can't hear.
I was going to ask because you said about the...
You want to see my number? All right. For you, Andres. It is a bit difficult, cold weather. I got the yes. Oh, dear. 138,296. My brother was 70 on then.
70, so he's one above.
And this was a painful, you had to stand there in the cold weather, nothing on. And if you moved, you were kicked. Unbelievable. We were so dehumanized. Whatever they done to you, you accept it. Feeling. Right. Anything else, please?
How long were you in Auschwitz for?
I was, until the end, I have done 5 years of hard labor, one way or another. We were liberated in Auschwitz 1945. So you can imagine, from 1940, 5 years I've done without knowing I will survive another day. And you've seen scenes which is impossible to describe to normal people. And you could walk around and try to find somewhere to live another day. Food, just live another day. 5 years I was, from one camp to another.
Do you ever go back to your hometown?
Sorry, I have been back to Poland. A few years ago, my wife and I, my daughter and my son-in-law, they wanted to go back where I come from. We decided, we went by bus. At the time we couldn't afford to go by plane. And we went first to Auschwitz. And my son-in-law keeps on talking about it. My daughter is married out to a Gentile, one of the nicest people I can meet. If I would have a son, I wouldn't want a better one. He has changed, his life has changed, he told me, for many years. And then I took him back to my hometown, walking around with my wife, my son-in-law, my daughter, pointing out, he was the baker, he was the merchant of, and every door in a Jewish home is on the door is written a Jewish word. It's called a prayer, a little prayer. And in every place we walk, look through, the indentations were still there from this. Nothing has changed. As I arrived back, some of the people were a bit worried. They thought all the Jews are gone. Some thought we come back to claim properties. As a matter of fact, I had an incident where I want to go in to see where I was, where I lived as a boy and so on. She was very protective. She said, I bought this from the government. I paid for it. So I said to her, if you give me a life of luxury, I wouldn't come back, but only came back to show my wife, my children, where I come from, and so on. I want to show you something. My place where I used to play in my youth days. You see, we were a thriving community. That was left our synagogue, which was turned into a warehouse. And it's been empty for years. But apparently now, I looked at the website, it's going to be rebuilt. And this is the history of how many Jews lived there. My uncle was one of the leading Jewish community. His name was mentioned many times. And I look up the website quite often and look and think, how could this happen? But I'm lucky, I got two lives. One for my family and one which I never is engraved here, and I must talk about it. As I say, I'm lucky. You wanted to ask something?
Yeah, what work were you made to do when you were there?
We were allocated, but my brother always made sure that I come with him. He's a cabinet maker. He said, my brother must help me he understands. So we were allocated on a place about building a factory, ammunition factory, by the AG Farming. That's a German company was building it. And we were working on this place for a couple of years. My job was, you know, when they were building the German, what they call they made forms to put concrete in before they build. I had to go out on the site, take a bucket of cement. They put me in a place, in a hut, which heated. I had to put a form in, put it in this hot house, and test it before they allowed them to pour it in. So I had special instrument. All of a sudden became a scientist to know exactly how deep the hammer is and how strong it is. That was my job, and I was lucky, sitting for a year or so in a warm place with people. That's one place. I also worked in a coal mine for a little while, but I was lucky. They allocated me to this work, and that was our work.